Tiddlywinks is an indoor game played on a flat felt mat with sets of small discs called winks, a pot, which is the target, and a collection of squidgers, which are also discs. Players use a squidger to shoot a wink into flight by flicking the squidger across the top of a wink and then over its edge, thereby propelling it into the air. The offensive objective of the game is to score points by sending your own winks into the pot. The defensive objective of the game is to prevent your opponents from potting their winks by squopping them, shooting your own winks to land on top of your opponent's winks. As part of strategic gameplay, players often attempt to squop their opponent's winks and develop, maintain and break up large piles of winks. Tiddlywinks is sometimes considered a simple-minded, frivolous children's game, rather than a strategic, adult game. However, the modern competitive adult game of Tiddlywinks made a strong comeback at the University of Cambridge in 1955. The modern game uses far more complex rules and a consistent set of high-grade equipment. The rest of this article concerns the adult game. Rules. Tiddlywinks is a competitive game involving 4 colors of winks. Each player controls the winks of a color, the colors being blue, green, red and yellow. Red and blue are always partners against green and yellow. There are 6 winks of each color, which begin the game in the corners of a felt mat measuring 6 feet by 3 feet. This mat is ordinarily placed on a table, and a pot is placed at its center. There are 2 primary methods of play with the 4 colors of winks, a pairs game, and a singles game. The pairs game involves 4 players, playing in partnerships, with each winker playing a single color. The singles game involves a single winker playing against another single winker, each playing 2 colors of winks in alternation. The players take turns, and there are 2 basic aims, to cover opponent winks, and to get one's own winks into the pot. As in pool or snooker, if a player pots a wink of his own color, then he is entitled to an extra shot, and this enables a skilled player to pot all of his winks in one turn. The point of squopping, which is the key element distinguishing the adult game from the child's game, is that a wink that is covered may not be played by its owner. The wink on top may be played, though, and sophisticated play involves shots manipulating large piles of winks. The game ends in one of 2 ways, either all the winks of one color are potted, or play continues up to a specified time limit, after which each color has a further 5 turns. Then a scoring system is used to rank the players, based on the numbers of potted and unsquopped winks of each color. National and international organizations. There are 2 national associations, the English Tiddlywinks Association and the North American Tiddlywinks Association. These organizations are responsible for conducting tournaments and maintaining the rules of the game. International competition is overseen by the International Federation of Tiddlywinks Associations, though in practice it is rarely called upon to intervene. Competitive play. Although Tiddlywinks nowadays is a singles or pairs game, competition in the 1950s through the 1980s centered on team competition, with teams consisting of several pairs. There were a number of university teams, and international matches were also played. More recently, singles and pairs tournaments have come to be the focus of competitive Tiddlywinks, with only a few team matches being played each year. The 4 most prestigious tournaments are the National Singles and National Pairs tournaments held in England and the USA. The World Singles and World Pairs Championships operate on a challenge basis. Anyone winning a national tournament is entitled to challenge the current champion. There are several other less prestigious tournaments in England and the USA throughout the year, often with a format designed to encourage inexperienced players. The results of tournaments and world championship matches are used to calculate Tiddlywinks ratings, which give a ranking of players. Typically there are about 120 players in the ratings system. Skill versus strategy, and comparable games. The important appeal of the game for many players is the required combination of manual dexterity and strategic thought as well as tactics. Tiddlywinkers often claim that the game combines physical skill with the strategy of chess. What is true is that Tiddlywinks is unique in the combination of skill and strategy it requires. Strategy in Tiddlywinks is often rather deep, since winks can be captured. Strategic and tactical planning involves anticipating opponents' moves rather than just building a sequence of one's own moves. Another factor that complicates the game is that there is a time limit to the play of the game, rather than until some objective in the game has been met. All in all, Tiddlywinks goes beyond the purely cerebral nature of a game such as chess. The fact that shots can be made or missed, together with the continuum of possible outcomes, makes strategy much less rigid than in chess, and prevents planning more than 7 or 8 shots in advance. Equipment: the winks and pot used in competitive play are standard, and are supplied by the English Tiddlywinks Association. The pots are made of molded plastic, with specified diameters at the top and the base, and specified height. The winks are made in Italy to specified measurements, and are made by slicing an extruded cylinder rather than by molding, and then smoothing them in a tumbler. Although this leads to some minor variation in thickness, it produces a much smoother edge to the wink than seen on cheap molded winks. The mats are made of thick felt. Mats obtained from different suppliers have different characteristics, and part of the skill of a tournament player is to adjust to different mats. Squidgers are custom-made by their owners. A player may use as many as he likes, selecting an appropriate squidger for each shot. Top players will carry anything up to 20 different squidgers, but will not typically use all of them in one game. The rules governing squidgers are liberal. A range of dimensions are permitted, and the material is not specified, except for the condition that squidgers must not damage winks. Typically squidgers are made from different types of plastic, though glass, rubber, cork and onyx are often seen. The squidgers are usually filed or sanded to give a sharp edge and then polished. Terminology: the game of Tiddlywinks is a rich lexicon. Here is a selection. Blitz, an attempt to pot all 6 winks of a player's color early in the game. Bomb, to send a wink at a pile, usually from distance, in the hope of significantly disturbing it. Boondock, to free a squopped wink by sending it a long way away, leaving the squopping wink free in the battle area. Bristol, a shot which moves a pile of 2 or more winks as a single unit. The shot is played by holding the squidger at a right angle to its normal plane. Karnofsky penhalagon, potting a wink from the baseline. Cracker, a simultaneous knock-off and squop, that is a shot which knocks one wink off the top of another while simultaneously squopping it. Crud, a forceful shot whose purpose is to destroy a pile completely. Good shot, named after John Good. The shot consists of playing a flat wink through a nearby pile with the intent of destroying the pile. Gromp, an attempt to jump a pile onto another wink. John Lennon Memorial Shot, a simultaneous boondock and squop. Lunch, to pot a squopped wink. Scrunch, to bounce out of the pot. Squidger, the disc used to shoot a wink. Squop, to play a wink so that it comes to rest above another wink. Sub, to play a wink so that it ends up under another wink. Tiddlies, points calculated when determining the finishing placement of winkers in a Tiddlywinks game. History: 19th century, the game began as an adult parlour game in Victorian England. Joseph Ashton Fincher filed the original patent application for the game in 1888 and applied for the trademark Tiddlywinks in 1889. John Jack and Son were the exclusive distributors of the game named Tiddlywinks. However, competition was quite fierce, and for several years starting in 1888 other game publishers came out with their own versions of the game using other names, including Spoof, Flippity Flop, Jumpkins, Golfette, Morrow, Flutter, and many others. It became one of the most popular crazes during the 1890s, played by adults and children alike. In its earlier years, many different varieties were produced to meet the marketplace demands, including those combining Tiddlywinks principles with tennis, basketball, croquet, golf, and other popular sports and endeavors. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, the public perception of the game changed. 1950s–Euro 1960s, the birth of the modern game can be traced to a group of Cambridge University undergraduates meeting in Christ's College on January 16, 1955. Their aim was to devise a sport at which they could represent the university. Within 3 years the Oxford University Tiddlywinks Society was formed. Although the two universities had been playing matches since 1946. The English Tiddlywinks Association was founded in 1958. In the same year, an article appeared in The Spectator entitled "Does Prince Philip Cheat at Tiddlywinks?" Sensing a good publicity opportunity, the Cambridge University Tiddlywinks Club challenged Prince Philip to a Tiddlywinks match to defend his honour. The Duke of Edinburgh appointed the Goons as his royal champions. The Duke presented a trophy, the Silver Wink, for the British Universities Championship. During the 1960s, as many as 37 universities were playing the game in Britain. In 1962, the Oxford team toured the United States for several weeks under the sponsorship of Guinness. They were undefeated against teams from the New York Giants and various American colleges and newspapers. A very prominent article appeared in Life magazine in October 1962 with coverage of the Harvard team. In the next couple of years, Harvard and other colleges continued to play, though at a low ebb. The North American Tiddlywinks Association was formed on February 27, 1966 with founders from both American and Canadian teams. In the meantime, in the fall of 1965, Severin Drix started a team at Cornell, and challenged his friend Ferd Wilken of MIT to start a Tiddlywinks team. MIT and Cornell played in NATWA's Tiddlywinks tournaments starting in February 1967, and became dominant. The Harvard and Waterloo teams disappeared from the scene by 1968. The game took particularly strong root at MIT, and the early development of most American players can still be traced to MIT today. While the basic elements of the adult game were devised by CUTWC in its early years, the rules have continued to be modified under the auspices of the various national Tiddlywinks associations. ETWA coordinated the game throughout the boom period of the 1960s when Winks flourished. A decline in interest within the UK in 1969 to 1970 led to the establishment of the three national competitions which have been contested to date, namely the national singles, national pairs, and the teams of four. There are also annual open competitions, notably in Oxford, Cambridge and London. 1970s. The first serious transatlantic contact was established in 1972, when a team from MIT toured the UK. The success of the Americans shocked complacent Britons. Competition started at the highest level, the World Singles, in 1973. A challenge system was agreed between ETWA and NATWA. The supreme ruling body in world contests is the International Federation of Tiddlywinks Associations. To challenge at the world level, a player must win one of the national titles, or finish as the highest-placed home player behind a foreign winner. There have been over 60 world singles contests to date. The Americans dominated all the early matches, and it was not until the 22nd contest when a Briton won for the first time. Since then the top Britons and Americans have been closely matched. After the establishment of the World Singles, a World Pairs event followed, and there have now been over 35 World Pairs contests. International matches have been played since 1972. 21st century, during its history, Winks has enjoyed variable levels of interest. The game has never taken a stronghold outside the UK and North America. The focus of British Tiddlywinks is still at Cambridge, and CUTWC's 50th anniversary celebrations in 2005 were well attended. The Oxford University Tiddlywinks Society has recently fallen out of existence. Despite this, there has recently been some resurgence in the game, with new clubs having been formed recently in the University of York and in Shrewsbury School. In America, there has been a tradition of Tiddlywinks in Washington, D.C., Boston, Eastern Ohio, and Ithaca, and a renewal of Winks through the MIT Tiddlywinks Association. National competitions are well attended, with a group of enthusiastic young players joining the stock of veteran players who have proved themselves at the highest level in world competition. In the USA, the game has a firm footing in certain high schools, since the children of many of the players who took up the game in the late 1960s and early 1970s are now of high school age. These players are now looking to revive University Tiddlywinks in the USA. On March 1, 2008, there was a royal match in Cambridge to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the original royal match played against the Goons in 1958. CUTWC players took on HRH Prince Philip's Royal Champions, the Savage Club, with members of the original 1958 CUTWC team in attendance. Cambridge repeated their victory from 1958 by winning the match 24-18. References. External links: English Tiddlywinks Association, North American Tiddlywinks Association, World Championship and other results.